Hello, Motorrad World fans, and welcome to this live episode of Talking MotoGP, where we're going to talk the Valencia race weekend, the 2023 season finale, and of course the testing that's literally just happened today. You'll see we're missing one person on that side. It's my co-host Paul Scott. He's just having some difficulty in connecting in. You know, it's Benoni after all. They've just learned how to. They've just learned a lot of things there. I can see he's joining us now, so we'll give him a minute or two just to get set up. Well, I welcome the likes of Beverly Woodendal, Yvonne Pretorius. Evening, Rob. I hope you and the family are well. We have load shedding, and I am studying for my final exam, but I can't miss Talking MotoGP. Yvonne Pretorius, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck for that final exam. Remember, think before you ink. My parents always told me that. I never listened to it because I was just thinking of bike racing, but think before you ink. That's what I'm going to tell my boy before his test. Say, boy, think before you ink. I'm in the lounge here because, and I've got my boy in the lounge here. It's just daddy and boy time because, unfortunately, our little baby girl has been in hospital since Thursday. So she's on the recovery. So mommy and hello everybody. This is my boy Trey. He's still in his school uniform because it's only 6 o'clock here in the UK, although it feels like it's midnight because it's so dark. So sadly our little girl's in hospital, but she's on recovery. She had influenza B, which is a bad case of the flu, basically. It's just the boys here. How's it, Rob? What an interesting weekend and test today, El Camino. Yes, it was. We got again so much to talk about. This is the beauty about MotoGP. There's just never a dull moment. There's always so much to talk about. Justin TP, Martinez Lambrecht, Andre Velman. Good evening, gentlemen. Great ride from Brad. Pity about the mistake. The race win could have been his. Also, the rules are becoming a joke. Yep, we're going to touch upon that as well. Dick Crosby, Kaz Weeks, Chris Zeeley, Stephen Berry. Hello, Stephen. Thank you so much for joining us. And no doubt you can have your contribution inside there. Chris Simcoe, Chris, all the way from America. Thank you so much. Check out his Facebook page, Pin the Gas podcast. Some great guests that he gets on the show there to talk with him. Dave McBain, Ross Smith, Daryl Holmes, Warwick Evans, Colin Bull, Mariska Hutchinson, Peter Garmany, Monique Manuel, CP Boertz, Gavin Siverston, Robbie Peterson. Hey, you, Robbie Peterson. Hope you well. Thank you so much for joining us. Definitely got to get Robbie Peterson back on the show sometime. We got a nice, exciting, long 2024 season coming up, so we'll definitely throw him in. Mike Teal, good evening, Rob, from myself and grandson Liam Townsend. What a weekend. You could hear us groan all the way to the moon on Sunday. Yeah, there was a lot to moan about. I was the same. As soon as Brad did that, what at one stage looked like he just wanted to check what the long lap penalty was like. I also nearly put my foot through the TV. James Den, tell you, James, how you, my boy, and everyone else that's joined us. So, ladies and gentlemen, Rob, ask Trey if he enjoyed Garnacho's bicycle kick. Trey, did you enjoy Garnacho's bicycle kick? That's good. He doesn't like Man United. He doesn't support Man United, but he liked that goal. He is Messi crazy. Barcelona, we just started a new career in FIFA with Barcelona, where we bought Messi, Neymar, and Alvarez. So he's loving his Barcelona. Yeah, nice little slide there. So I've got a football mad kid here. He's gonna captain England and he's gonna win the World Cup with England. That is his dream. And he does a nice slide again, once again. George Haji, thank you for joining us, Georgie. Sean and Ronnie, good. Hope you are all well. Right, let's get into it then. Paul looks like he sorted himself out. Just bring him up here. Paul, how are you doing?
Yeah, Rob, all good. Thank you very much. Yeah, we definitely had a bit of a glitch this evening. Yes, I've been listening to what you have to say and some of the comments, and welcome to everyone who's tuned in. I said to my wife this evening, I said, we've been running 1 hour 45-ish for the show. I said, don't expect me back in the house before tomorrow, because I sit in my office, which is adjacent to my house. I said, this might be a long one.
I told my boy is going to go to bed a little bit later tonight because Daddy's going to be talking MotoGP. So we've got a lot to talk about, and he's celebrating about that. So yeah, we do. Paul, we have so much to talk about. Let's start with the race weekend. Of course, that there was so much on the line. Peco versus Martin. Could Brad get get that much needed win. His first win for KTM in almost 2 years. Aprilia, could they end the season off well? There were so many factors heading into this last round. It was very much about Peco and Martin, but there were still these other factors. And it turned out to be the exciting weekend that we were hoping it would be, that we knew it would be. It's kind of starting already in the qualifying sessions. And one thing I would say, just wrapping up the Jorge Martin, we can touch on Jorge Martin first. Is I watched him and he looked like he had everything under control. Although someone posted on Facebook just before the Sunday race and said, right, what's going to happen on Sunday? There's going to be drama. What's it going to be? And I started typing and I started saying, Martin's going to do desperate things. And I don't mean desperate as in he doesn't have the pace. What can he do to hold on to the pace? I mean desperate as in, right, is he going to pull a Lorenzo from all those years ago where he's going to try and back riders up? Is he going to do crazy moves to try and pass Peco and upset his rhythm, try and do like a Masia type style in Qatar? Because the flip side of Masia getting away with what he did in Qatar was almost promoting Martin to say, well, okay, well, if he can do it and not get penalized, why can't I do that and, shove it on the inside and make it blatant? Anyway, so I was like, I think there's going to be this little bit of desperation from Martin in Sunday's main race. The sprint race, we know how calm and collected, he just seems to pull the sprint race off. But the main race with so much on the line and he didn't gain as many points as he would have liked from Peco, there's going to be a little bit of desperation here. And it turned out that there was, because he got it, got an okay start, got onto the back of Peco and then nearly ran Peco into turn one, came back on track and then just looked flustered. I know he was whining that Vinales, why is he trying to pass him? And Marquez, he forgets it's not up to Vinales and them to let him past and Marquez to let him past. And so there was this desperate guy, and we've said it so many times, and I use the saying quite often, desperate people do desperate things. And the pass on Mark was a desperate lunge, a bit of a racing incident, but, I know he leans the blame towards Mark and vice versa, but it was a desperate move from a desperate rider that never came off, and in the end, losing the championship, not the way we would have liked to have seen, but I don't know. I just round up Martin, maybe even the last couple of races, just on Sunday's main race I'm talking about, as a desperate rider who just couldn't find the answers he wanted.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you on everything you've said. I think he's got the sprint race waxed. He doesn't really need to start on pole anymore. He gets to the front and he can set the tempo and make sure that he wins. Why the difference on a Sunday? Is it because he knows on a Sunday he's got twice the distance, so he's got to learn to manage his tires? I don't know if that's what he's thinking, where he knows a guy like Peco, and I'm going to throw Bezzecchi in here. We won't talk about his race because I think there was an issue there with Marquez. We'll get to that maybe. But, Bezzecchi's very good the last probably third of a race. Now, I don't believe Martinez got to that point where he can look after the tires as well as some of the other guys. Peco certainly can. And I think that's maybe why Saturday he knows he can just go flat out, start to finish. He's got half the actual race distance. And then he doesn't pull the gaps that he expects on Peco. So Sunday is a bit flustered. I agree with you. He was a desperate man. I mean, when he almost ran into the back of Peco. And I mean, look, Peco did it last week to the Gian Antonio at Qatar. So obviously this new aero can create big problems at 330 plus kilometers an hour. But when he came back onto the track, I'm presuming his peripheral vision allowed him to see that I think it was Aleix or Maverick was a little bit behind him. Imagine if he had clattered into that guy. I mean, he was flat out. So, yeah, definitely desperate. The incident with Marc Marquez, with Jorge Martin, why is Mark going to let the brakes off? That's what he's saying. Maybe Mark was at the apex and he did let the brakes off. That's what you do. But, yeah, I think definitely a desperate man. And he showed it a couple of times in the last 4 or 5 races. So, yeah, I think he's learned a hell of a lot from this year. He's certainly going to be a contender from the start of the first sprint in Qatar next year till the end of the season. There's absolutely no doubt, presuming there's no injuries along the way. He's going to be a handful for everybody, but he needs to just get that last piece of the puzzle just to slot into place, and then I think he has everything that it takes. But saying that, exactly what we've discussed in the past, Peco has looked like, and did it again this weekend, the world champion. I mean, when he saw that Martin was out, he immediately let the KTMs pass, and check what happened to them. So he dealt with the pressure better than anybody. So yeah, I think fair play to him.
Yeah, we'll rounding off Martin. I think, as you said, that final piece, a little bit more management, especially for Sundays, and you got an unbeatable rider. Peco proved what the factory has over these independent teams is a little bit more experience, a little bit more resource to just take it over the line. Decision making in some instances, we know with the tire choice in Indonesia, just those kind of things cost Martin and Pramac this year. Whereas factory Ducati and Peco, didn't. I'm sure there were lots of times, and I'm sure there was a lot of panic within the team, but they somehow just kept themselves grounded. Peco definitely, the last, I don't want to say half of the season because it was a long season, but certainly last 3/4 of the season, sprint race, he wasn't willing to sacrifice. You could see it again on the Saturday. Had a good start, but as soon as his feathers get a little bit ruffled, he kind of almost goes, whoa, this could get horribly wrong. Because at the end of the day, you're racing against the Binders, who have got nothing to lose. The Vinales have got nothing to lose. The Marquez has got nothing to lose. I've got a lot to lose here, especially in a sprint race when the main race on Sunday. So you can see Peco's just managing things every single lap that he does in these final couple of races heading towards the title decider, and that's where Peco proved his worth once again. I'm hugely impressed by Peco and Martin, no doubt about it. But Peco kept his head when I certainly wouldn't be able to. I was losing it just watching on the couch. Somehow kept his head, with everything going on around him, with Martin going to be his teammate, and tire pressures and warnings and this and this. He kept his composure. Massive crowd in Spain. Let's not forget, Peco was there. Yes, he had Rossi, the big boss by his side, which I think helped him as well. It can only be beneficial to have a guy like Rossi put his arm around you and say, listen, this is what happens in these situations. You're going to have this. So they all came together, and Peco, first time we've seen a champion back up his title in a very, very long time, especially for Ducati, something that Casey Stoner couldn't manage to do. Well, it's never been done. And Peco's, he really has. He's proven himself a worthy champion. Having said that, I think this sometimes maybe over management in certain situations. If he wants to win it 3 times in a row, I think he's going to have to do that. No more. He does it. He has a bad Saturday, and then he goes, that's it. No more, Mr. Nice Guy. I'm going to come out and I'm going to destroy everyone Sunday. And then he does. Next year, I don't think he's going to have the luxury of being able to have this kind of laid back. I don't think anyone's going to have the luxury. Judging on the testing today, next year is going to be qualifying laps in the sprint, every single lap in the race and in the main race. So I think, next year, you tell me you're going to win the championship next year, and I actually just can't answer you. But Peco's going to be there. There's no doubt about it. But there's certainly not going to be this comfort zone of, okay, I'll let the others make mistakes, and he's going to have to take more risks more often.
Yeah, he's certainly going to, and I don't know if that's his style. He's certainly comes across with the pressure that the two of them were under for the last, call it from when they went to the flyaway races. So it was the last 6 races. He dealt with the pressure better than Martin, albeit that I believe on a mostly week-to-week basis, Martin had the better speed. But Peco could deal with the pressure. And when he didn't have a great start, he never got flustered. And he would take, like Martin on Sunday, try to get past everyone in those first 3 or 4 laps. Then he crashed into Mark, whose fault it was. I think it was a racing incident. Doesn't really matter. It changed the championship. But Peco in previous races was passing one guy per lap, seeing that the gap to the front or to wherever he wanted to end up was staying the same. Possibly, I don't believe it would have changed the result. Martin might have even beaten Peco had he not crashed. But Peco had to finish 5th if Jorge won. And he wasn't going to let that happen. Or at worst, he would have finished 5th. So I think he managed the pressure exceptionally well. And I think and we've discussed it, Rob, I think he's become a very all-rounded champion. He doesn't look at, yes, obviously they're looking at sprint race, Sunday race, we need to get maximum points over the 2 days, but minimum risk. What they did, and they did it very well, from the third race or the second race of the season when he was in the lead to the last race, they looked at the end goal, and they just seemed to manage that differently. And exactly what you said, it's probably the experience of being in the full factory team and having been down that road. Many of those guys in the management side have done that numerous times. If you just think of Tardozzi, World Superbikes, a rider himself, and in MotoGP, he knows how to deal with that pressure. So, and how to manage it. So I think that definitely played a role. But exactly what you say, next year, I don't know if Martin's going to get the same opportunities. I hope he does. It'll be fantastic if we can see 4 or 5 racing at the front. But he's going to have to just play it a little bit differently. And you mentioned the tire pressure story. That's a big issue next year and something we need to discuss, because I just think it is so wrong. But anyway, yeah. So the factory Ducati handled that very well.
Just a point that we need to just quickly address and shut down is Anthony Friedenstein brings it up. Jorge Martin needs a penalty to start the new season. Stephen Berry says they probably felt sorry for him, but Miguel Oliveira's got his carried over. So Martin should now as well. As you said, I kind of look at that and go, a lot at stake, heated. These guys, it's a racing incident. But having said that, the way MotoGP and the stewards have laid out the law, Martin, it's a penalty all day. Martin gets a long lap penalty or a penalty of some kind. It hasn't even been mentioned because it was poor Martin time. And it should, because okay, that's fine. But what applies to Raul Fernandez, Brad Binder, Peco, but it applies to them all. So I do think Martin needs a penalty for that, and I do think it needs to start in Qatar, whether it be a sprint race penalty or race penalty or something, as Miguel Oliveira. So I think the race stewards need to relook at that, because there were we've seen a couple of incidents now, these last couple of ones, the Masia and all these, where they're kind of just letting slide. They're just trying to sweep it under the carpet, and you're like, no. Whoa. And you do quickly forget, like the Marquez incident, I kind of quickly forgot because Peco's champion and Mark's testing on Tuesday. But then when you see comments like that, you come back and you go, no, but hang on. Yeah. Just because it's Jorge Martin, and no. What he did was wrong. I would love to call it a racing incident, but in modern day MotoGP, it's not, and it needs to be relooked at.
Rob, I don't know what the rules say, but can they retrospectively look at that? I don't believe they're going to do anything, because exactly what you said, not even the commentator said, "Ooh, is he going to get a long lap penalty?" Sorry, I'll carry on while Rob dies.
You carry on while I.
The commentators didn't even mention a long lap penalty. So I really don't know if they can retrospectively look at it and say, what, we were a bit. I mean, look at poor old Miguel Oliveira, broken shoulder blade. Start next year with a long lap penalty. On that point, when Mark took Bezecchi out lap 1, I said straight away to my son, we were watching, I said, now Mark's got a long lap penalty. They didn't even re-show the replay. It was all over Facebook and YouTube and wherever else, but not on MotoGP, the coverage that we get. So I don't want to say that they benefit the Spanish riders, but they dig their own grave, because look at Masia, look at Martin. There's no doubt Mark should have got a long lap penalty, or like Brad, drop back one place. But I mean, he didn't just barge though. He took him out properly. Racing incident, I got no problem, but we got to go back to that point that when it's a racing incident and you've penalized Brad Binder, why are you not penalizing Mark Marquez? And it just seems, for the average guy who watches our sport, they look at it and say, yes, the Spanish, they can do what they want, but let the South African oak just look at the green paint and he gets into trouble. So I do agree. These double standards need to be sorted out one way or the other. Either we go back to full contact MotoGP racing, which I wouldn't like to see because it's just too dangerous at the speeds they're doing, or they got to apply this law evenly.
Yeah, it is. As you said, for people watching the sport that haven't been as involved or supportive as we have for so long, and if you're getting into it and you're really enjoying it, there is. It's and they're making it so blatant. Again, as you said, when Mark Marquez on the inside of Bezecchi, I didn't really pay any attention to it at the start because I didn't see it clear enough. When you watch the replays, you're like, geez, MotoGP, I don't know how much more convincing you need for penalties for it. I've seen, the Darren Binder, Jake Dixon. Dixon rides into Darren Binder, and Darren Binder gets a long lap penalty. Marquez shoves Bezzecchi off. Jorge Martin shoves Mark. And you watch it and you just go, it's a very frustrating system, and it's a system that needs to get sorted out very, very quickly because, as you said, the inconsistency and the blatancy of it all is just, it's very frustrating. Matthew Gibbons says, Peco won't be world champion 2024. Bet my Rossi watch on that. Are we making note of this?
Who gets the watch, you or me?
We'll ching ching cha. We'll ching chong. We'll do a. There's 172 people not watching now. We'll do 172 ching chong chas and see.
Okay,
so Matthew, that's a big statement. It's going to be 2024. We're gonna talk about it just now. Okay, everyone talking about that. At Catalunya, when I saw Brad ride over Peco, I thought 6 to 8 weeks off. Maybe if he could find form, fight back against Martin. Instead, he got a podium the week after at Misano. We forget that Peco. I mean, that was right in the heart of the kind of championship coming to the climax. And when that happened, I did also think, oh God, this is the worst timing for Peco. And he did. He bounced back well. And Peco's a worthy champion. There's no doubt about it. He's done a fantastic job, and worthy champion. Let's quickly switch over to Brad and the KTM. Trey, just turn it down a little bit, please, boy. Frustrating is the word that jumps to mind, because I don't want to say it was on a golden platter for him, and he looked like he was doing everything right, and he just one mistake in that section where the KTMs, it was obvious that they were battling. Jack Miller crashed there out of the lead, Paul Spargo crashed there, Augusto Fernando crashed there, and you could just see the whole weekend that's where they were losing so much time. Martin passed Brad in the sprint race there. That's where the KTM is still slacking a little bit. That initial change of direction, trying to trail brake on the front end, on the front brake, they just can't get it turned. So again, another weekend that just highlighted KTM's flaws in some ways. Brad, I think it's 47 races or 48 races or something, whatever, that he hasn't won a main race. Sorry. It's concerning because Brad Binder cap on, we sing his praises. He's amazing. He's the best. But there are those guys that post on YouTube and Facebook saying, we love Brad, but he doesn't win races. The stats aren't there. And then you're about to climb into the guy and just with all your rage. And then you go, oh, shit. He doesn't have the stats. He's not winning races. And then these kind of things happen where he has the opportunity to. And then, KTM just can't seem to find they can't seem to find the checkered flag in first place. So it was frustrating. I'm sure it was the most frustrating for Brad and his team. There's no doubt about it. It wasn't done on purpose. Brad said he had to say it, it was saving a crash. Sorry, I'm dying of something. But anyway, it's just showed again that the KTM's not quite there.
Yeah, and Rob, as a MotoGP fan, you're watching two aspects. You watch with your head and you watch with your heart. So your heart, you're going to be watching the guys that you love. Whether you're a Binder fan or you're a Peco fan, that's your heart saying, yes, I want this guy to win. Then your head, if you're a realist, you're going to watch it and say, well, Brad's doing a fantastic job here, but, how good is the bike? I would like to think that had he not had his little issue and done his long lap penalty for no reason, that he would have hung on to the lead. But when you look at the pace of the two Ducatis, I don't know if he would have hung on to the lead. And by the two Ducatis, I mean Zarco and the Gian Antonio, specifically the Gian Antonio. I think he was very reserved on his last lap. He could have put a pass on Peco. He tried to show him a wheel. I think he knew what was at play. A contract with his name on it, more than allowing Peco not to get taken out to win the world championship. Because if Peco had crashed, he was world champion anyway. So going back to my point, you're watching with two aspects. Me, I watch with my head and my heart. And exactly what people on social media are saying, as good as Brad is, he's not getting, and when we say not getting the results, please, He's fourth in the World Championship. He's finished on the podium. He finished on the podium in the sprint race. So he is unbelievably good. And we know it's the bike that's not quite a Ducati. But saying that, I think Brad would have been, when he got handed the lead. And I think I just went back. If you remember last week, I said straight away, the last third of last year's race, Brad was by far the fastest. He nearly got runs on the line. When he got into the lead, I thought, man, this is done and dusted. Next thing they showed something else on the TV, and when they came back, Brad was fifth. I was like, what the hell? Imagine, we were disappointed. Imagine how he feels. Because let's be quite honest, that was his chance to win. And now we're going to start again. Yeah, everyone starts 0 points on the 12th of March next year, or whenever it is. But it's going to be even harder next year, because if you look at the qualifying or the testing today, Ducatis are definitely, it's the dominant bike. So it's going to be tough, but very sad for Brad. Then I had my favorite rider in MotoGP, Jack Miller, leading a Grand Prix. And as much as he's not my guy, I just thought, make Rob happy. Yes. And what does he do? He tosses it down the road. But, in all fairness, and I've said it many times to many people, we would expect nothing less of Jack Miller. How many times has he done it? He might not have been in the lead in other races, but when he's had seconds and thirds in the bag on his own, he's crashed. So I'm going to say that's not a KTM issue. Yeah, same place. I agree. I think they were struggling there. But I think it's a Jack Miller problem. I felt desperately sorry for him. But when it happened, I was like, oh, yeah, the next one to do it is Zarco. But Zarco actually didn't. So, So I felt desperately sorry for KTM. But Brad redeemed KTM unbelievably. As usual, he's a Sunday man.
Yeah, when that Jack Miller was in the lead, I was like, oof, Paul, you're going to get it on Tuesday. Paul, you're going to get it on Tuesday. And then when Jack crashed, I just went, oh, do we even mention? I'm going to somehow just disguise Jack in, from the conversation. And you brought it up. It is. Jack's got a big 2024. Jack is probably, I would say Jack and Vinales for me, got probably their biggest targets on their backs for next year, because it's time to put up or shut up in 2024 for those guys.
Well, without knowing, I was actually very shocked to see, not shocked, I think we were half expecting it, to see Pedro Acosta wheel out a factory KTM today. And he didn't, so good for Jack. He's kept his ride. Whether anything changes in the off-season, I doubt it. But I must be quite honest, I was 50-50 as to, when I opened the garages this morning, to see who was parked in the garage next to Brad.
Yeah. Your pudding. Go in the kitchen and get your own pudding, my boy.
Ice cream, boy. Ice cream.
No, he's got a nice yogurt or something waiting for him. I'll get it for you afterwards. We can have a pudding on the couch before bed. Gary Foss asked me here, Rob, hope you're coming to South Africa for Brad's wedding. Unfortunately not. We tried. We wanted to. We got an invite, and it would have been fantastic. But just timing is not the greatest for us financially, and with kids at school and the move. Still just a little bit too hectic. So I cannot wait, and I hope the Brad and Courts and everyone there has have a great wedding. I'm sure we'll hear all about it and see all we need to on Facebook and everything else. Quickly ending on Brad and KTM. We know where they are. We know what the process is. The frustrating thing with Brad is, as you said, we sing his praises for good reason. He is one of the best riders on the grid, but there is the argument that you need the stats to back you up, and unfortunately hasn't got it yet. Still no pole position in MotoGP. As I said, no one in 2 years now. So when you start sitting down and just saying those things out loud, you go, oh geez, okay, there is a couple of things missing here for Brad to be the Martins and the Pecos. We know that he's there. I know that he's there.
Yeah, 100%.
But to convince the rest of the world, they need to see those stats. And so when someone argues, on Facebook, I know there's those trolls that argue with no particular point and in a stupid way, but those that say in a nice way, listen, I like Brad, but that's this. You can understand. So let's hope KTM can put that right in 2024. I think they can. Brad put in a great last couple of minutes in the testing today, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So the pace is there. It's a little bit of fine tuning that needs to be done. What was I going to talk about now? No, I've got this. Get out of my face, this thing now.
Just while you're looking for what you want
Yes.
to chat about, Rob, I just want to mention something. I've mentioned it a few times in the past about the aero and the electronics starting to take over in MotoGP,
Yeah.
and I don't want to say dumbing down the racing. I
Yeah.
listened to a fantastic interview. I'm just going to tell you who it's with. So if anyone wants to watch it, they can. It's a guy called Gypsy Tales. He's actually a motocross journalist, but he interviews Ben Spies this
Okay.
week. I think I watched it yesterday. And
Mm.
Ben says the biggest problem with MotoGP, aerodynamics, and listen to it so he explains it, taking away the ability to overtake. And
Mm.
Ben Spies says it's going Formula One. And
Mm.
he also says the electronics. What Ben suggested, which he said should have happened 4 or 5 years ago, just change the tire compound to
Mm.
make the bikes to bring it away from all the aerodynamics, but make the racing close. Just something while you are looking at your next suggested topic. Just people who want a Gypsy Tales, go watch the interview. I think it was 7 minutes. Ben makes a lot of sense of what I think is making our sport less of a spectacle than it used to be. And I understand. And that's why the bikes are so fast, because of the aerodynamics. It's something that I think in the future is going to have to be looked at. 330 plus kilometers an hour at every single track is hectic.
It is. So yeah, send me that link. We'll post it up on the Motor Rider World Facebook page after this or tomorrow, so that we can all have a look at that. I'd love to have a look at that. As you can hear, my boy's kicking his ball here, playing some football in the background. The point I wanted to get to was the Brad, and this is where Dorna are at the moment. And I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts down the side here, and yours, Paul. So Brad nudges Alex Marquez, gives him a nice little how's your mother in South Africa, and gets penalized, drop one position. Okay. Again, I went with that's where MotoGP is these days. If you can't just go shoving it on the inside and barging someone. Okay, I can deal with dropping one position. Old clever Brad then goes and passes Vinales. So he passes someone before he drops a position. He then drops a position as soon as he passes Vinales. And I don't know. And I want to ask Brad this question: if it was a mistake that he only saw the drop of position after he had passed Vinales, or if he knew a loophole in these rules that, okay, well, it says drop one position. Doesn't say from when, from where, from who. I could have got to the lead and then drop. It just says drop one position. So there's a bit of grey matter involved there. So because as Brad passed Maverick, and he did it into turn one, which is a hard move to do. He did it and then let Maverick pass. So to me, it looked like Brad knew the rules here and went, well, it doesn't mean I've got to let one position. No, it means I can pass Maverick and then get passed back. But it was again, if you're new to the sport and you're watching for the first time, it makes no sense. He's been told to drop a position, but then he passes a position and then he drops a position. So the position that he should have lost, did he actually? So what was the point of that exercise? Actually, I just don't understand.
No, that's exactly what we said, that my son and I are watching. My son actually said, does Brad know that that's what he can do? Because you would expect, logic would say he needs to let Alex Marquez pass in front of him again, and then drop behind him and then get past again. But Brad clearly knew exactly what he was doing, because first of all, he didn't wait.
No.
Or didn't do it immediately. I think it was a lap and a half later. Maverick immediately dropped back and said, well, and then straight away, the graphic came up. Okay, you've done what you had to do. Carry on.
Banged him again. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So he clearly, I'm going to say they knew that rule, that they've discussed it because of all the regulations about if you bump anyone and you can get a long lap penalty, or if you have to drop a place. I think they've looked at that rule and says it doesn't say drop a place to the guy that you barged. It just says drop a place. So he quickly passed Maverick, dropped the place, and clearly it was fine because there was no contest from Grassini and there was no contest from the officials. So clearly they were happy. That must be the rule. And when you chat to Brad, it'll be very interesting to see. I'm going to say, without a doubt, they've discussed this. They know their stance on it, and he applied the letter of the law. Fair and square. If that's what it says, he did it.
Yeah, I do. I definitely got the sense that he knew exactly what he was doing, and he played it to perfection. If he did, so we'll chat to him. But it's just an interesting one because I don't know how you tie that kind of rule up to make it more solidified. Because as Stephen Berry says, yeah, back in the day, the rule book was you got to give the place back to the rider that you took it from. As you said, technically
Absolutely.
should have given it to Alex Marquez. But now, as Stephen Berry says, the one race, the rider crashed, so the rider couldn't give that position back. Then what happens? So it's an open can of worms kind of rule.
Yeah.
And Brad took full advantage of it, which was brilliant. Hip hip hooray, well done. Okay, looking a little bit further back in the race, Digi Antonio, we know another brilliant performance by Digi. He finished third on track, got penalized with the tire pressure.
Second, right? Second on track.
Second, yeah. Yeah, sorry, second on track, you're right. Second on track, got penalized with the tire pressure and got knocked 3 seconds, which then put him into fourth place overall. We'll talk about the moves and Digi, where he's gone and everything just now. Just going through the results. Raul Fernandez in fifth. His best result in MotoGP. Great ride, fantastic. Now, Paul, Stephen Berry, everyone down the side here, please. I'm not understanding what's going on here. Because I was at the motorcycle live show in Birmingham for 11 days. Then my daughter was in hospital, and then I rushed home to get to my boy. So I haven't had time to sit down and read and think about things. Explain this RNF situation to me now. Because as it stands, Dorna have now kicked RNF out, basically said, we don't want you anymore. You're not paying your bills. You haven't done for 2 years. We've had to fund you to keep you in the championship, blah, blah, blah. You're out. You've broken this. Goodbye. Razlan put a thing up saying, it's been great, but goodbye. There's new owners coming in. Americans came in. They were buying RNF, whatever. So what is the status there? Is there an RNF team? If not, is this new American team a new team which will fund Raul and Miguel? Or as it sits at this moment, is there no team where Miguel and Raul have no ride?
Okay, so from what I understand, RNF is done. Dorna have withdrawn their application, their license, whatever, however you want to word it. But Dorna have said in that statement that they put out, saying that they are reviewing the applications as we speak.
Okay.
Their aside to that was, remember that both Fernandez and Miguel Oliveira are Aprilia paid riders. Okay. So it seems like no matter what, no matter where the money is going to come from, whoever the new team is going to be, that's why Fernandez was at the test today, because they are Aprilia factory backed, exactly the same as the Pramac team, where the riders, their contracts are with Ducati. Their contracts, the two of them, the RNF team was the so-called backer, but the contracts are held by Aprilia. So I think the two of them will be fine. We might see them racing. Obviously, it's going to be a new team. Dorna sound like their statement sounds like they have applications and they're looking at it. Because in my mind, I was thinking, but there was an opportunity to give KTM the extra bikes. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like the deal, there's something in the offing that's going to happen. So the team will carry on, but it won't be RNF, but it will be Aprilia, and the contract is done for 2024. So they're definitely same two riders on Aprilias. I'm presuming right now they're just tying up or looking for backers. According to Dorna, it's a done deal. They're just deciding who it's going to be.
Okay, well, a lot of people in the comments kind of agreeing with what you're saying is two riders are contracted by Aprilia, so that's their problem to pay them, look after them, make sure they have bikes. It's just a case now of Aprilia, I'm sure, in discussions with Dorna and whoever else to say, right, we still want the 2 spots, we want the team, we just need a new team, when it's, Team America, or I don't know what it is. The problem, from what I understand, that RNF have got is that there was these Americans that came and already have bought out Razlan, and all of a sudden been told, oh, sorry, you bought nothing because you actually don't have a team. And that's why they are now taking Dorna to court to say, I don't know what. Yes, we know that it's been terrible for the last couple of years, but we're here to take it over and look after it. I don't know. I don't know if they still even have a chance, or if that door's firmly closed.
Yeah, that I can't comment on. Obviously, Aprilia want their bikes on the grid. How it's going to happen, who's going to run it, where it's going to come from, time will tell. But I'm quite confident that the two of them will be on the grid on Aprilias.
Jeez, Alan Norris says Leopard Racing to replace RNF. And I know he's right. I know Leopard Racing have spoken about coming into MotoGP, but please, with those kind of tactics and those kind of... I do not want those people in MotoGP, please. So yeah, okay. Thanks for clarifying that. A little bit further down in the main race, 6th place was Alex Marquez. We'll talk about him. 7th place, Frankie Morbidelli, buying out of Yamaha in 7th. And yes, you can say a lot of these results were because a lot of riders unfortunately crashed out. Rins, Miller, Rins, Miller, Bastianini, Fernandez, Marquez, Jorge Martin, and of course Bezzecchi early on. Before we get into the 2024 testing and wrapping up with Aprilia, I was going to ask you who you think, or your thoughts on your most disappointing rider of 2023 and your overachiever. And I'm just going to quickly mention my most disappointing. It's Maverick Vinales all day long for me. I think he, 2 seasons on the Aprilia now, still hasn't managed to really kind of bring any kind of consistency, hasn't won yet. I think Aprilia in general this year were really disappointing, and I think they got caught with their pants down. I think they got stretched in terms of finances and resources. Yeah, it sounds like very easy to put 2 more bikes on the grid, and it's not. It's 4 more bikes. It's this, it's that, it's that. So I think Aprilia were very stretched this year, but Maverick Vinales is just such a disappointing exercise, and his team didn't help him because qualifiers pole was fastest in the testing today. We know Mavericks in that kind of environment is unstoppable. But then it's the team, and Maverick make the wrong tire choice for the sprint race. Then they make the wrong tire choice for the main race. Then he has that technical failure, which gives him a for whatever grid place penalty. There was a lot of mistakes this year from Aprilia. There's no doubt about it. But Maverick Vinales just doesn't, even when I look at him and I hear how he talks, he doesn't talk like he's a man that's frustrated and, you know what, I just want to win. What do I need to do to win? He just, it's just this, I don't know what it is with Maverick Vinales, but he's irritating me at the moment because there's a talent. He's irritated us for a long time. There's a talent there, but this year just didn't bring it out again. Wayne Taylor says his most disappointing was Oliveira. I can understand that, but Oliveira, put himself in that very tricky situation with RNF. And I think 3-4 races into the season, Miguel was told, listen, you might not get paid or this, or there might not be a team. And, it was a lot for him to kind of process, and the fact that he was taken out and injuries. So there was a lot to kind of contribute towards Miguel's bad season, which the disappointing with Miguel is that he just didn't, he never recovered from it. He just wasn't strong enough to recover on. Whereas Maverick just did nothing to me. He just did nothing. Aleix Espargaro, kind of, okay, I think the high of Aleix is now over. I think that love affair with Aleix Espargaro is now over. He's done too many things, him winning races and finishing on the podiums more often than not is kind of over now. Next year, with the Pedros coming, the Marks on a Honda, the Frankies on the Marks on a Ducati, the Frankies on a Ducati, I think there's going to be too much for the likes of Aleix. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the worst rider. We can talk about the best rider now, but your thoughts on the most underperforming rider for 23?
I think we've got to a point, and I know most of them or all of them now that the new contracts are signed, but some of the older guys, the deadwood needs to move. Maverick being one of them. I agree with you fully. He's always been like that. Even at Yamaha, he was, he blew cold more than he blew hot. When he blew hot, he was great on the Yamaha. I think he had 5 victories. But on the Aprilia, he just certainly has that, this is the best we've got. I'm not even going to try. I'll go fast for 1 lap. Yeah, I'm okay. In the race, there's pressure. I don't really care. So I do agree with you on that point. Pol Espargaro, yes, he had a severe injury. I think his time is up. Well, we know it is. He's now a test rider. Aleix, I think, also time to move on. These guys have been around a long time. And this new crop of youngsters coming through, the Digis, Alex Marquez, the Marinis, the Bezzecchis, they're 5, 6, 7 years younger, and they're proving that they can race. So let's get some of that deadwood out. To me, Fabio Quartararo didn't have a great season. I'm not saying he was the disappointment. I understand fully he's on equipment that can't quite be up there with the Ducatis. But there was specifically the middle of the year, he really looked like he wasn't enjoying it, and he looked like he had given up. Marc Marquez, middle of the year, Marc was done. And I don't say Mark is a disappointment. He had a shocking season by his standards. He tried too hard. He got hurt. He crashed. He set the record for crashes. So I'm going to say Maverick definitely, and I think Quartararo. I think he underperformed. His bike was not great, but he just didn't seem like. On the odd occasion, we saw him really racing. In the last maybe 3 races, he was a lot better. But the middle of the season, he just also seemed to be in that I wish I was somewhere else attitude. So to me, I think those are Maverick and him were the 2 guys who were the most disappointing to me. You know, we got to take Paul out of the equation because he was injured. I don't say Oliveira purely because, I mean, he got hurt on the very first race and he struggled. Then he got taken out again. Another one is Nakagami. I mean, you know, we've never said he should be there to win the world championship. But, you know, more often than not, at the end of the race, he was 3rd, 2nd, or last, you know, and they've kept him, which blows my mind, you know. But anyway, you know, I think him too, just very disappointing. I mean, on this weekend, I don't even think they showed the guy. You know, when you got to go that far back on the grid just to see him, but they run out of airtime to get to 21st or 22nd on the grid. So definitely him too. But I think Quartararo for where he should have been.
I just, you know, look, you can pretty much say any rider that wasn't on a Ducati was disappointing this year. I understand what you're saying about Fabio 2 years ago, a year ago, he was a world champion. You know, my thing with Maverick was, you know, I take man and machine, and that combination should be on fire. The Aprilia is a really good package. It's a lot better than the Honda, a lot better than the Yamaha, better than KTM's in many ways. So that's why I chose him. But you can, a couple of guys said Frankie Morbidelli. Obviously, you know, as you said, he switched off halfway through the year. A lot of riders just switched off because they knew what was coming, or they just were exhausted, or they wanted to make something else happen for 2024. Anea Bastianini was another one. He, even when he came back from injury, just wasn't clicking. His Sepang win kind of took him out of the equation there and gave him a little bit of hope. But there's lots, you know, Jack Miller, another rider. Wayne Taylor says Nakagami, as you did. Alicia Spargo, a lot of people have mentioned here down in the comments as well. Joan Mir. I mean, Joan Mir was
probably
was
actually he's probably the worst.
He was I mean, you know, yes, he was out in testing today, and things are looking a little bit up for Honda, which we'll get to. But you know, the guy comes out of Valencia, does 6 laps on Friday, and then rips himself off for the, you know what I mean? It's the guy just doesn't know any kind of management. He doesn't know. Yeah, he was. Miller underperformed. A lot of people are also saying yes. So there were a lot of people that could have been put under that.
You know, Rob, it's also very easy for us to say that they didn't do well. But remember, when you're looking at, so take Mir as an example, the amount of times he crashed. And then take, I'm going to say a mediocre rider on a Ducati. Is there such a thing? Take Alex Marquez as an example. You know, he was on the Honda last year, underperformed, or didn't perform. I won't say underperformed. He performed as well as the Honda allowed him to. He jumps on the Duke this year, and man, he was styling. Let's be quite honest. I think he overachieved. For Alex Marquez. Did he overachieve because he was on a Ducati? Well, I don't know. But then look at Mir. Mir suffered the same fate that Alex Marquez did last season. So, you know, I understand. He was, I mean, I think he got 26 points the whole year, or 30 odd points the whole year. So definitely underperformed. But he was on a package that wouldn't allow him to do anything more than that. A la Nakagami. And the difference is Nakagami, he didn't crash a hell of a lot. Maybe in races more than he should have, but he was just always at the back, no matter what. He was never in the mix in a race, not that Mir was. So, yeah, it's a very difficult one. You know, we're comparing against the Ducati, which at the moment is just in a league of its own. And I think it's a little bit unfair, but I hear what you're saying. That's why maybe Maverick is the overall loser, because his package was a lot better than the Honda and the Yamaha.
Stephen Berry says Digi until 5 races. Take that, Paul. Digi until 5 races.
Now, listen, we looked at the whole season. We didn't just look at the first 15 races. We looked at all 20.
Yes, we did. We did indeed. Right, overachievers to finish on, or not overachiever, just best rider. I mean, obviously Peco is the best rider because he won and whatever. But I think let's maybe use most improved rider for 2023. I would lean towards Marco Bezzecchi, although he didn't really finish the season off the way I would have liked. I think again that the difference between factory team and independent team came into play towards the end. The fact that he was on an older spec Ducati, although, Digi got better on an older spec Ducati. So there's a lot of arguments that cancel themselves out. But Bezzecchi, I was impressed with Bezzecchi this year. The way he approached the media, the way he put himself out there. I just think he handled the whole environment. At one stage, he was, a firm title contender, and he didn't seem to let it get to him. Yeah, he crashed and then on track a couple of times. I'm saying off track, he didn't seem to get, I'm the man, or I want a factory Ducati now. Where's my factory Ducati? This is not fair. And I'm proud of him for the decision he made to stay with VR46. I think that's showing loyalty. I think that's showing a lot of things that are missing in many ways in modern day sport. Yes, the Pramac deal was a much better deal, but you know what? These guys got me here. I'm comfortable with them. I'm going to make it work with these guys. So, Brad, fourth in the World Championship on the KTM. Most improved, no, because I know how good Brad is. If anything, he underachieved by not winning. And, fourth in the World Championship, fantastic, brilliant. But, again, we've spoken about it so much. This is Brad Binder. His name and his profile speaks louder than the specs and the stats sheets, so that's why you're like, that Brad Binder's, he's there, he's one of them. So if I really had to put money on it, I would probably lean towards Bezzecchi. A lot of people going Chris van Veeren, come on, Rob, Brad for sure, yes, and I know I'm going to get slack for not going directly to Brad, but this is what the Brad cap off and the MotoGP kind of pundit or whatever you want to call it, with that cap on. Stephen Berry says best Peco, Brad improved, Martin, Bezzecchi, Martin also improved. I think crumbled a little bit towards the end. Jan Weiss says Alex Marquez. There's a case there for Alex Marquez, as you mentioned. A couple of people, Bears, Peco, of course, Digi, another one. So there's a lot of names to throw in the mix, but I'm going to lean a little bit towards Bezzecchi.
I agree with you on the case of Brad. I mean, it's KTM's best ever finish in the overall for the World Championship, fourth. He improved one place. Last year he was fifth. Yeah. My rider that was the most impressive is Jorge Martin. He was seventh or eighth last year. He took the fight to the very last race. And I don't think too many people were expecting that. Make no doubt of it. The guy is talented, he's fast. But I think at the beginning of the year, if we had said, pick your top three, I certainly don't know if I would have put him in my top three. First of all, we would have expected Bastianini to be up there. Bezzecchi, most certainly. Brad in the mix, which he was. I think, Martin, seventh or eighth last year, to finish second and take it to the wire. Yes, I agree with you. His last 5 races, the pressure, whatever it was, he crumbled a fraction, not certainly in the sprint races. That's his domain at the moment. He also didn't qualify as well as he had done up until his crash in China. So, but still, I think that to me, the fact that he came second in the championship, I'll almost say unexpectedly. Whether it was fortuitous or not, I don't know. Because of Bastianini struggling, Bezzecchi having a couple of injury issues. So I don't know, but I certainly think between him and Brad, I'm very happy to say Brad was fantastic. Yes, he didn't win, but he's on a bike that is only going to win under very extreme circumstances, possibly weather, or he has to get lucky like he almost did on Sunday, where we see a couple of the favorites get taken out or crash or whatever. I think Martin was the standout rider. Peco, we were almost expecting it. He showed last year. He is the world champion. He's back-to-back that now. First rider since Mick to take the number 1 plate back-to-back. So very good for Peco. So he was already, if you had picked your top 3 last year, you would have or the beginning of this season, you would certainly have had Peco in the top 3. But me personally, I don't know if I would have put Martin in there. So well done to him. I think he had a great season.
Yeah, he did. There's no doubt about it. And you could plead the case for a couple of riders. As most improved or whatever you want to call it, and I think certainly that crop that we mentioned there, I think pretty much good. Bezzecchi, Brad, and Martin, I think certainly would probably be at the forefront of that, just below Peco, who was ultimately MotoGP's best rider. We know that. Let's look at the transfer happenings heading into the last weekend, there were still so many question marks. Digi, Marini, it was kind of spelt out at Qatar, but there was no real announcement that Marini was going Ducati and what Firmin Aldeguer, what was happening. Coming to Valencia, we got a little bit more clarity. Just go kick it there, my boy. A little bit more clarity with the Firmin Aldeguer move almost being poached by, from what I can hear from Pramac Ducati going to Firmin and saying, listen, whoa, just hang on this deal to go to VR46. VR46 are going Yamahas in 2025. Do you want to be on a Yamaha in 20? You have one good year on a Ducati and then on a Yamaha that who knows where it's going to be. Stay another year in Moto 2 and we'll have a ride available for you in 2025. Guaranteed. And this is what it sounds like what happened, is that Firmin Aldeguer has signed a pre-deal with Pramac Racing, which is a bold move from Pramac because, Martin, Bastianini, Franco Morbidelli, they've got a lot of potential names there. So to go out and put pen to paper with Firmin Aldeguer, which is what it sounds like's happened. I'm not saying it has, but it sounds like that's happened, is a big statement from them. And that ultimately opened up. Look, I feel sorry for Digi because he was really dragged along. And it was great to see him out in testing today. And it's great to see that his future has been cemented. And he can thank Luca Marini for the opportunity, basically. Because, again, coming out of the weekend is Alberto Puig saying, Luca Marini approached us.
Yeah, correct.
Marini came to us, which is very interesting. And I think it's a good move for Marini. The more, I know it sounds like a ridiculous move, and in many ways it is. But the more I think about it, for Marini, we've spoken about it, better money, full factory Honda ride, which, is he ever going to get a full factory ride? And then I thought of one big thing, and it's at getting out of his brother's shadow in many ways. As long as he's in his brother's team, it's you see that Rossi looking after his brother. He's always going to have the best parts. He's always, so there's always going to be that comparison and I think Marini took the bold step. I think, I pat him on the back in many ways. The bold step to go to Repsol and say, you know what, I'm your man. I will help you develop this motorbike. I will, take the chance that no one else really wants to take. I'll give this exercise a go. Take me on and I'll give this exercise a go. And that opened the door up for Digi and the Aldeguer talk that we know. So ultimately, that's what's happened. What I don't understand is how this Marini moves just seems to have been so low key. Honda put out a press release. I think it was this morning I got it, or last night.
Yesterday, Monday.
Yesterday. Yeah. Marini makes switch to Repsol. No picture. No, you know what I mean? Yeah. Even him on the bike, there wasn't much. There's been not much made about this move. It's like, oh, well, we had no choice. Marini's on our bike. Yay, there it is. Black bike number 10. He can't run Monster sponsorship because we still got to deal with Red Bull, although they're leaving us. You know what I mean? It's just like this Repsol are just like, well, that's what it is. So I've just been very surprised by that. But anyway, that's how it's turned out. Digi VR46 replacing Marini, who's going Repsol, Honda, Firmin Aldeguer on ice in Moto 2. And if he carries on the way he's riding at the moment, going to dominate that class next year with a potential ride in Pramac Ducati in 2025.
I'm happy to see him staying, Aldeguer, that is, staying in Moto 2. I think it's a good move. There will most certainly, if he has a half as good a season as he's had the last 4 races now, there'll be a MotoGP ride for him with a top team. He won't be struggling on second-hand equipment. I firmly believe that. So Pramac, I think they're very clever if they have jumped in and, got a pre-contract deal with him. I think that's a good move. I think he's going to dominate. Looking at the testing once again, he was unbelievably fast yesterday. On the Honda Marini story, I wonder if Honda now, in the back of their heads, are not saying, yes, maybe we should have signed that Digi and Antonio guy. Because for the last 4 races, he's been superb. I don't know. I know the talk is that Marini is such an analytical guy, and he's someone who can actually analyze and comprehend the data. And it seems like you need that now to progress. Where, as we discussed last week or the week before, maybe a guy like Martin, he just goes fast. He doesn't care. He rides the same setup more or less. Where maybe Marini is the guy to move Honda forward, and that possibly could be their thinking. The other side of the coin, which I think is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, is did Rossi allow the move or fabricate the move or have a hand in because he wants to get his NSR 500 out of Honda? I think that's purely just some journalist going back 15 years and trying to, clickbait. I don't believe it had anything to do with that, but it would be interesting. I think it would be a fair deal if Honda actually did that. Marini, I think he's going to be okay. Eh? He was all right today. So I think he's going to be okay. But we've seen it many times, Rob. Testing actually means very little. We've seen it in the past where guys are unbelievably fast. I'm going to use Pol Espargaro on the Honda as an example. And the minute the robot changed and we were actually racing, he was nowhere. So let's I don't want to read too much into it, but also you can't neglect it. So, but Marini wasn't half bad today. So I think it's going to work. But as you say, as maybe because it was such an open secret. I mean, even Uccio was saying, well, he's gone, and we're finding her. It wasn't a case of they saying, well, if Marini goes, he was adamant, So maybe that's why they thought, well, everyone knows, but you're quite right. No photographs, no. Maybe, and it's also because of the Monster Red Bull story till the end of the year. It could have something to do with that.
So it was 2024 testing began today. For those of you who didn't get to watch it or don't know, all the riders were back on track today in MotoGP. Touching on Moto2 and Moto3, they did testing, 2024 testing, all the new riders and the new teams, and that they're running Pirelli tires now in both Moto3 and Moto2. And a good reflection for Pirelli, as I think they broke the lap record and every kind of lap race pace ever seen in Moto3 and in Moto2. So the Pirellis looks like it's going to be a really good addition there. Darren Binder was back on track. Great to see he got some laps in. I think it was top 15 again. His teammate Sergius, I forget how you say his name. He was right up in the mix as well. So again, I talk about Jack Miller and a couple of those guys. Big years in 2024. It's a big year for our own Darren Binder. Darren Binder fanboy cap on. Fantastic. I know the pace that's there. I know the determination. It just needs a little bit of luck in terms of consistency and just getting a little bit of momentum going. And Darren's one of the greatest. Darren Binder fan cap off, pundit cap on. It's about the stat sheet. And this year was not very good. Not very good at all, especially for high profile name like Darren Binder. Yes, coming down from MotoGP to Moto2. More was expected. I don't think he got the chance to really prove it with the consistency and crashes and injuries and everything. But having said that, Darren's been in that paddock a long time now, and next year, I think he's again got a target on his back, and I just don't want him to be that rider that just gets lost in the Moto2 paddock. Like a Bo Ben Schneider that's just 1 week, every now and then you'll see his name pop up. Oh, geez, he still races, Bo Ben Schneider. Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah. I don't think Darren will ever be that kind of rider, but I just want Darren to fulfill his true potential next year. Potential is kind of what I'm saying there. So let's see what happens there. But in terms of the MotoGP testing, and Paul, in many ways, it was such a pity with the Marquez crash because the prestige of the Mark Honda farewell. I would have loved to have seen what was going to happen if he did get on the podium somehow, or if he pulled in the pits. And there was obviously going to be this big kind of farewell plan, and it was all taken away because Mark landed up in the medical center. But very anticlimactic. Mark Marquez this morning. I loved all the pictures. I loved the build. It was like a proper soap opera. Pictures of Mark walking to the Cressini garage and then walking up the stairs. He's got the left side of the garage, which, there was that little skit with him and his brother. Like, no, well, I want the right. I've always been right. Right's like the team leader. And Alex said, well, bugger off. I've got the right. Yeah. Mark's now it looks like he's had to accept having the left. So, and then the livery, this purplish kind of looking Ducati with this weird looking 93 on, different to the Repsol 93, this whole new fresh look, and this Mark going out. And when his first couple of laps on the Ducati, I was like, what riding style is that? That's not like his riding style looked like it had changed. And I was like, Then Mark Marquez turns on the charm. And let me say, I think he said his fastest lap on lap 45 or 46, Rossi 46 out of 48 or whatever. Right at the end of the day, he sets his fastest time. Obviously, put soft tires on, low fuel load. We know, like a proper qualifying kind of stint. And I know you just said testing means nothing, and I agree with you. And testing is it sugarcoats a lot of things. Man, did Mark look good on that Ducati. He looked good on that Ducati. He looked smooth. Didn't look like he had to ride anywhere near as hard as he had to before. And to pull out a low 129 straight away after 40 laps on that motorcycle, after being on a Honda for so long and only knowing that, man, and a lot of people, I know Simon Crayford and everyone were going, geez, hang on. You knew he was going to be good, but like, this is madness. Like, that was a big warning shot fired today by Marc Marquez and Cressini.
Well, a couple of things that I took note of. First and foremost, it was fantastic to see the livery of most of the new bikes out testing. I mean, I think Rins on the Yamaha looked fantastic. But anyway, going back to Mark, if you watched him the first time he rode out the garage, Peco left as world champion about 12 or 15 seconds before Mark. I think there were 10 journalists outside his pit. Mark could not get out. There must have been 70 standing outside that pit. So as much as people hate him and have a lot to say about him, he's a draw card. He is the new Valentino Rossi of 5, 6, 7 years ago. Yeah, not the crowd, please. I'm not saying he is Rossi. Anyway, he's not trying to be him. He's just attracted that attention because he's an 8 times world champion. And then exactly what you say, they highlighted those first 2 laps he did, and he looked like this is going to be, he's going to be behind Nakagami at the end of the day. And then he just decided, well, this is it. Let's see what we can actually do. And once again, on social media, all the comments from the naysayers, I hope Ducati took lots of fairings, or Grissini, and he's going to toss it down the road. And, he didn't crash. He was superbly fast. If memory serves me correct, from qualifying on Saturday to today, 0.8 of a second quicker. Look, everyone went faster, but still, 0.8 of a second, he ain't going to find that on the Honda. So that and I think he finished 4th. So certainly it's not often you see even if it is a top guy, change brands and be in the top 5 or 6 immediately. And he was there from the first hour. He never dropped out of the top 4. So I think he's fired the first warning shot. And as I said, don't worry about testing. Yeah. But in the back of every other guy's mind they're like, whoa, this is, we knew it'd be good, but did we think it'd be this good, this quickly? And one of the journalists, I can't think who it was, said, just go back 4 or 5 weeks and listen to what Cal Crutchlow said. And Cal's raced with him and knows a bit. So anyway, fantastic to see. But I certainly think that there's more to come from everybody. Obviously, Martin feeling a bit of pressure. He tossed it down the road. So I think he actually crashed twice. So I wonder if it is a bit of pressure, or if he was on the 2024 bike and the other guys were still on the 23. I'm not too sure. And then one thing that I noticed, did you see the back of Marini's bike versus Jean Mir? Just go back and watch that. Completely different. I know it was a plain black carbon, which, with my old eyes, you can't see so lacquer, and Mir's still on the Repsol color, but the back of that Honda looked way different. And clearly Marini was on the 2024 bike. I didn't notice it so much with Zarco. He impressed me a bit, but then tossed it down the road. But also not too bad, little front end, but just I noticed that was the one. It was kind of the only thing where I thought this bike looks different.
Just to quickly rewind a little bit to the Darren Binder conversation, Robbie Peterson says, seems like the bike is not set up for Daz. Strength corner entry just looks tentative, and he does. The last couple of races, see this very upright, rigid Darren trying to ride that motorbike. So anyway, just ending on the Darren comment, I really hope him and the team can find something, because they need to. Brenda Boehm, Paul says you need to change a picture in the background.
I'm just waiting for Mark to send me the Ducati autographed picture, then it'll be up there.
Okay, it's in the post, as they say.
South African Postal Service.
Oh no, you've got one of the best postal services in the world taking care of it, so you find that. The Marc Marquez conversation, it was brilliant. I think a lot of credit needs to go to Frankie Carcetti, who's now Mark's crew chief. He turned something around with Di Antonio as well. Yeah, he really did find something. He was new to the Ducati project. We know how good he is. He's very well known for working with young riders, getting the best out of them. He won the world title with Jean Mir on the Suzuki, and had a great first year on the Ducati with Digi, and found something. And he's already kind of translated that to Marc Marquez, who, I love that shot of Mark taking his helmet off the first time, trying to look all professional. And I'm pretty sure Honda put in his contract, listen, you can ride that Ducati, but you're not allowed smiling. on the first day. And Mark kind of like took it off, tried to pull a, like a Dwayne Johnson, The Rock kind of, and he couldn't. That little kid came out of Marquez. Marquez has got this kid that lives inside of him that makes good decisions and really bad decisions sometimes. But either way, is this happy kid to go racing, and that kid came out and he smiled, and it was a smile. It was a smile almost to the camera, to everyone that was watching in that paddock, to say, you know what, guys, I know you've doubted me for good reason, for whatever, but I feel something here, and I'm coming. And then he still translates that to finishing the test 0.1 of a second behind Vinales, who set, I think, was the fastest ever lap set around Valencia. So it's an incredible exercise. You were talking about he's the new Rossi. I watched that today, and I watched all this attention around Mark, and it's exactly what MotoGP needed, because I think we're still holding on to the coattails of Rossi. He was there at the final race again, and listen, Rossi's still that ultimate ace card. I think he will always be. I think he'll be for a long time, but certainly this Mark exercise kind of invigorated, gave MotoGP a new life. Kind of for a second, you did forget Valentino Rossi. He wasn't even mentioned. He wasn't even thought about. As you said, Peco Bagnaia wasn't even. No one was actually thought about. There's Pedro Acosta making his debut, and it's like, but just wait. We need to get pictures of Mark first. And there's Paul Rins, won the only Honda race this whole year. No, just wait. You're nothing. Mark's going to Gresini. And yeah, in many ways, I do think it's MotoGP's new draw card, for 2024. We talk about 2024 being exciting, and it's because Franco's going on Pramac and this and that, but it's mainly because Mark's going on Ducati. In fact, it's 99% that Mark's going on Ducati. So they've got this massive draw card there, and and never mind, it's Mark and Alex in that team. Gresini, Ducati. I mean, they'd never in their wildest dreams. If you had told them at the start of the year that heading into 2024, you would have the most popular team in the paddock with an 8-time world champion on your back, they would have slapped you. And here we are. The PR, I'm working with marketing now with companies and stuff, and they always put a number on that kind of PR in terms of market value in that. I don't think Gresini have a value. It's priceless. What happened today for Gresini is priceless. And Fausto, may rest in peace. I think he was upstairs there going, this is awesome. This is exactly what I wanted. And Spanish team, with Spanish sponsors in many ways. I know it's got the Italian connection, but it's very much been transformed into a Spanish team. And just imagine if Mark goes out there next year and wins the championship. How many boxes will this guy tick? Right, he could win on another manufacturer. Right, he's not done and dusted after the injury. He did something Rossi couldn't do, won on a Ducati. The last independent rider to win was effectively Valentino Rossi, Nastro Azzurro Honda, although it was a fully backed HRC, it was an independent team. Marc Marquez, however many years later, Gresini, Ducati goes and wins. So there's just so many storylines heading into 2024, and it's very much all around Marc Marquez. And today he just emphasized, if Mark had gone out there and was 10th, 11th, a little bit of glimmer, you still would have been like, oh, that's not bad. He's got a lot to learn. Give him time. We're not sitting here saying that. We're sitting here now saying, judging by that, and I know you try not to take too much and get too excited about testing, but you've got to be excited about that. I mean, the guy, and the way, like you said, the way he did it was so impressive. Didn't crash, ran off once or twice, but nothing too serious. Didn't look out of shape. If anything, he looked slower. He looked slower than he did on the Honda. But that's how motorcycle racing works. When you're riding slower, you're going faster because you're more relaxed. You trust the machine more. I don't have to work so hard. Mark rode that Ducati like I don't have to ride at 110%, where Fabio still is with the Yamaha and all the other guys. I don't have to. I can ride it. Realistically, Mark was riding at what, 90% today, 88%, 85%. It was testing. He's not going to ride 100%. And he does that. Ooh, shotgun's loaded.
Yeah, very ominous, and a lot of things to take out of that. The first thing is, as you mentioned, when he took his helmet off and he looked at Frankie and he had that little grin. At the same time, they showed Alberto Puig slouched in his chair, just glancing up at the screen as if to say, what the hell have we done by letting him go?
Yeah.
Then you saw Gigi standing outside the box watching Mark leave. Also something a year ago, if we said, no, Mark's going to be on a Ducati and Gigi's going to be running to his box to get his input, we would have said, no, man, you're dreaming. Another thing is, if Mark is as competitive as we expect him to be, it's going to knock Martin down a peg, because Martin should have been the first independent rider to win the championship, and he didn't. Now suddenly his chances have halved, because it's going to be in all likelihood, between him and Mark.
Yeah.
And is he going to be able to beat Mark consistently? Look, time will tell. If you have a look at Bezzecchi, he was the only Ducati ahead of Mark, and he knows the bike. So, yeah, I think Mark, he showed that he's a force to be reckoned with, and his reputation precedes him. He's been there, done that. A la the Valentino Rossi's and the Mick Doohans, a very select few who can say we were really special. And I certainly believe he is. He's also taken a big gamble, which we've discussed previously, without a doubt having input from his brother, because this could backfire horribly on him. He could have finished the test session in 16th and said, well, what do I do now? I can't go crying back to Honda because that door is closed for 2024. I don't think anyone ever expected that would happen, but certainly it's going to be very interesting. And I think he's laid down a bit of a marker. And as we said, it's only testing, but he certainly looked like he was having fun, first of all, which Mark always seemed to be doing. And I think he's realized that we've got a machine that can do what it's supposed to do and allow me, Marc Marquez, to do what I'm supposed to do. 2024, roll on, boy. It's going to be unbelievable. I think we're going to have 6 Ducatis in the, racing for first place more often than not, with a Brad Binder thrown in the mix. And I can't really see anyone else consistently challenging at the front.
Yeah, Stephen Berry says testing deep sea diver. Smith, guys, you're blowing smoke for nothing. Mark rode a bike that sorted. All the factory guys spent the day testing. Little Big Media Co, you guys are putting cart way before the horse. We know that. And I know, yes. That's okay. Did you get one?
No.
Okay,
there was 3 in the pot, and then
that's okay. That's okay. Okay, Paul, you take it. I'm just going to give my boy a yogurt. You carry on that conversation quickly.
Okay, so then I'm going to carry on with where Rob was heading with this. Yes, we understand. It's only testing. We probably are putting the cart way before the horse, but it's not often in testing that you see someone jump on a brand new bike. He's been on the Honda for 11 seasons. He's adapted very quickly to the Ducati. And you've got to look at the lap times, having a look at what was done on qualifying on Saturday and then race pace. Race pace, different story, obviously, but he's certainly up there challenging for the front. I think it looked very promising. Other guys that I think were good. Pedro Acosta, not too bad for his debut, had a little crash, seemed to adapt nicely to the bike. It's going to take him a bit of time to adapt. I don't know, those of you who saw on social media, there was a magnificent shot of him through that turn 14 going into the last turn, sliding that gas full lock, opposite lock slide with the heat haze coming off the exhaust. Absolutely fantastic to watch. That's why we watch this sport. Guys like that have the ability that mere mortals just cannot even fathom how good they are to be doing that. And as much as we, as spectators, criticize some of the riders, it's not a point of actually criticizing them. We're critiquing them. In our wildest dreams, we wouldn't be able to achieve what those guys can do. And we've said it many times. They are actually the top of the top of the top. I'm just looking down at testing results. 5th, Raul Fernandez. Also, yesterday's race, I understand lots of guys crashed out, might have been ahead of him, but he only finished 4.5 seconds off of first place at the end of the race yesterday. So for him to be in 5th place, I think good things to come from him. He seems to be finding his feet, as we discussed. We've got to see what happens with regards to the RNF team. Who's going to fill the gap? Is there going to be more cash coming in? Are they going to be able to run it as as a concern that can be competitive. Let's hope that they do, because he's definitely on the up as opposed to anything. Rob, I was just saying, in today's testing, Raul Fernandez, 5th. Yesterday in the race, only 4 seconds behind. So we hope that RNF bring in the new team, whoever they might be, the backers, bring in an ability, a cash injection or whatever is needed to give him the machine, because he certainly seems to have been on the up and up. So I was quite impressed to see him in 5th, Alex Marquez in 6th, Fabio De Gianantonio in 7th. I wasn't expecting anything worse from Alex and Fabio, or anything better. Fabio, new team, but same bike. So, take a little bit of time, but I'm presuming he gets there and says, this is how I like the bike. And they sort of set it up as he rode yesterday in the race. So I think he's there or thereabouts. I think once he settles down, he's going to give Bezzecchi a bit of a run for his money. I think Bezzecchi as a racer, a little bit harder, will take a little bit less of a second place to him, or a second seat. I think he'll be more aggressive. But DG certainly turned up the heat. Alex Marquez, I don't know how it's going to gel with Mark. I think it's going to be okay. Alex seems to have found his identity in Grassini, and let's see where that takes him next year. He certainly had some great races. Did he do as well as he should have? He was on a Ducati. Yes, he was injured for 3 races. But he's certainly a big improvement from what he was doing on the Honda. Also showing us time and again, he's a 2 times world champion. These guys don't get the accolades that they get because they're no good. These guys are unbelievably good. Alex in 6th there, Enea Bastianini behind him, Jack behind Enea. So as we know, we're not putting the cart in front of the horse here, but you do also have to look at the testing, and it'll be interesting, which we'll probably read about tomorrow. Who put on soft rubber, who ran low fuel to put in that 1 lap. I'm going to say most of them, because the times were so quick. There's no way someone could have done it on old rubber at the end of the day with full fuel load. So it'll be interesting to read all the write-ups. We won't have anything from Mark because he's not allowed to say anything about the Ducati until 1 January. So all he's going to say is probably had a nice day and he's glad he didn't fall over.
I think his smile said it all, to be honest, without saying anything. I think that smile said a lot. And going back to the Mark topic before I went out, it's just, I know it's testing, and I know we kind of preempting things, and I know a lot of guys were on the 24 bike and finding their way and trying things and that. Mark did 40-something laps on a motorcycle he had met that morning. He had sat on for that morning. And he went faster than he's ever gone around Valencia in his life. I look at that and I go, that's sensational. And what Peco and other Ducati riders have proved in the past, as Stephen and Little Big Media and a lot of and Deep Sea Diving and everyone mentioned, is they seem to take this time when Ducati do make steps. So the beginning half of 20, and this is where Mark Marquez needs to take advantage, because heading into 2024, he's got all the data from Qatar, which is still very fresh. Got everything. He's got everything lined up. They can plug that bike in with the setup that Digi's now done so well with as well. And Frankie Cocchetti can send Mark and say, right, we've got everything. This works. Go ride the thing and go win. Whereas the Pecos will still be pulling apart the 24. And then Enea's, Enea took long with the 23 package. Stephen Berry says, Bezzecchi went on the 23 bike today and said, didn't really feel 100% comfortable. So certainly when Ducati change things, they might seem like very small things, but they make big differences, because, Martin at the start of the year wasn't enjoying how the new bike was stopping, and then found something and changed his riding style maybe and worked. So while the factory guys are all doing that, this is the chance for Mark to just go, goodbye. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not getting any new parts. I don't have to worry about developing. I've just got it. And Peco said it time and time again. I'm not here to develop. I don't want to develop. Give me a bike and I want to go and ride. And that's the frustration for Peco at the start of seasons. Although this year he started off perfectly, but that's the advantage that Mark needs to take. As Deep Sea Diver Smith says here, Jap bikes have got concessions. How's that going to change? Carl Crutchlow, speaking to Carl Crutchlow today, he said Yamaha's biggest problem is there's not enough bikes on the track. You can give them as many concessions as you want. On a race weekend, 2 are going racing. And he said it. No matter what we do, lining up at Qatar, there's going to be 2 bikes. That's it. So that's not going to help Yamaha's cause. Honda okay, slightly better position. They've got 4 bikes. They've got Zarco, Nakagami, which is just, as you said, turning out to be a failed exercise. Mia's not a, he can develop a crash. That's all he can develop. And he
Listen,
can
Rob,
develop
just on that
crash.
point for Mir, now he's gone across to Santi Hernandez. So let's see if
Mm.
that makes a difference. Will it or won't it? There might just be a little bit of a shift in enthusiasm and in mentality. Time's going to tell. I don't know. So that was just a point I wanted to bring up. I'm sure most people have read that. I think it could be the change that he needed. I don't know. So, but I do agree with you. They've got 4 bikes on the grid, 3 and Nakagami. We're going to have to see. 2 of them are brand new on the bike, a la Marini and Zarco. It's going to be interesting, but still, they got 50% more bikes than Yamaha have got on the track, or double the amount. So it's going to be interesting what Cal says, to have 2 Yamahas. Yes, we know 2025, the situation in all likelihood is going to change, but that doesn't help them for this season. And also, Rins jumping on the bike. First of all, he's still injured, but I think by February he should be, barring any stupid off-road motocross crash or anything along those lines, he should be 100% healed. But he's jumping on a brand new bike. He's got to learn everything again. So it's going to take him a while. I do like his riding style. I think he'll adapt to the Yamaha quickly, because it's very similar to the bike that he was on last season, so the Suzuki. So let's see. But yes, it's exactly what Crutchlow says. They're getting data from 2 versus data from 8. 8 that are racing at the front.
Well, that's the thing. We've spoken about it countless times. It's 8 bikes and 8 riders running in, winning races. I think every Ducati rider this year, bar Marini, won a race. Pulling apart the testing, we've spoken about Marquez, but I look at Marini in 10th, 29.956, lap 68 of 72. He did 72 2 laps. That was a lot. I think the only guy that did more was actually Maverick Vinales, who did the most, 86 laps. So credit to Vinales, give him a lot of slack, and he deserves it to me. But today, 86 laps, that's a lot of riding, and he set a fast lap time. But what impressed me again with Marini, and this is exactly what Honda need, there was a Marini that just plugged away with it. Didn't throw the bike into the weeds, didn't have one crash today, and at the end, top 10, first time ever on this Honda that's terrible, posted a decent kind of time. Yes, I know it's testing, but you can still take some things away from testing. And that was a much better performance than I thought Marini was going to give. I thought we're going to see Marini down at the bottom going, oh God, what are we going to do? So, you know what? Hands up, a little bit of credit there to Marini. He could turn out to be this perfect solution for Honda because of his, more tactical way of approaching it. The fact that he's not one to go, I'm going to override the bike to throw it in the weeds if I have to. He'd rather go, right, bring the data back. Let me get hold of the data, and I can pick through the data with my guys. So it could just be the signing of the season for 2020. I know we all talk about Mark and this and that. The Marini move could be, one that just blows all of our minds. I also look at Pedro Acosta. I think a good first outing. I know the commentator said you always kind of look at being as close to 2 seconds or below the fastest time to really be in the mix. And if I cast my mind like to Darren, I think he was like 4 seconds or 2.5 or 3 at the end. But Augusto Fernandez last year, I think he finished 2.2 or 2.4 behind. Pedro Acosta on the fastest lap ever set around Valencia of 29.2, which was Maverick Vinales, ended the test 1.2 seconds off on a gas that neither Paulo Espargaro or Augusto Fernandez could bring home. Augusto Fernandez was just ahead of him in 14th, Pedro Acosta 18th. But Acosta, he had one crash, but also just looked like he climbed on that bike and was ready for the MotoGP challenge. So I'm excited for the Acosta exercise because I think he's going to bring some fresh ideas to the KTM project, which I think they need. Jack's burst of fresh ideas certainly helped at the beginning of the year, and then they just didn't seem to be able to, move on from that and capitalize from more. I think they just very much hit a brick wall. I know they were throwing a lot of things at it towards the end, but I think Pedro is going to bring some much needed competitiveness maybe to it. I know people talk about, Brad must watch out because Pedro's are coming out. I hope Pedro does challenge Brad. You want that competition. You want Brad to be pushed more from inside the KTM network to push himself more. And I'm not saying Brad's in a comfortable position now by being Mr. KTM, not at all. But I could see it at Portimao, the first race, when it was all about Jack. Oh, Jack on the KTM, already faster than Brad. Oh, Jack. It got under Brad's skin, and Brad reacted, and he went faster, and he got better. You need that competition, and that's what makes Ducati so good. Is that pool of competition? They're all going against each other. Yes, all on the best bike, but it's, I'm going to be the top Ducati. No, I'm going to be the top. No, I'm going to be the. You know what I mean? It's got that competitiveness within the ecosystem that is Ducati MotoGP, and KTM need to kind of replicate that. In many ways, that was Aprilia's failing. There was no one really grabbing the horse by the neck and saying, right, I'm going to be. I know Espargaro is a team captain, but I'm going to take this and I'm going to go with it. It was 1 week it's Vinales, then it's Aleix, then it was maybe this. You know what I mean? There was no real kind of anyone taking it by the balls and going with it. So I'm glad. I think Pedro's a kind of personality that could ruffle a few feathers in that KTM setup as well. You know, I think he's already putting pressure on Jack Miller. We know that. There's going to be pressure on Brad Binder, but I think that arrogance that Pedro seems to have, which he backs up with results, yes, died off towards the end in Moto2 this year. But I think that competitive nature is a little bit of the recipe, that's the ingredients that KTM needs right now.
And also exactly what you say, under 2 seconds, first time out on a MotoGP bike. It's a massive step up from from Moto2. I think he's going to show that he has the ability. We've discussed it. I don't believe he has the machinery to win the World Championship next year. I think Brad has proved that. I can't see Pedro beating Brad next year over the full season. I just can't see it happening. I can see him beating Jack. And I'm going to say almost without a shadow of a doubt, he'll beat Augusto Fernandez. But let's see. Fernandez has got 1 year under the belt on the bike. But looking at Acosta today, he looked like a man who got there with, I'm going to say, no expectation. He wanted to feel the horsepower. He wanted to see what the carbon brakes were like. And he seemed to adapt very quickly. I was mentioning while you walked out, Rob, there was that shot on YouTube of him going around that turn 14, full opposite lock slide. You know, this is a new guy. Yes, he knows how to ride a bike. He ain't a beginner. But, you know, it takes a bit of getting used to. I can remember the first time Brad rode that KTM MotoGP bike. He was blown away. He said, you know, from turn to turn, the front wheel doesn't touch the ground. Yes, I know the electronics now are way more sophisticated. But for a mere mortal to jump on that thing, you got to reprogram your brain. As good as they are, you know, everything's now happening half a second between corners faster because you're going 4 seconds a lap quicker versus Moto2. And he seemed to adapt very quickly. I think he's certainly going to bring a little bit of a swagger into the pits come the first race. And maybe that's exactly what Brad needs to step it up. And as you've said, Brad doesn't need that. Brad is the top dog in the team, and he doesn't show it. He's there to do a job, and he does the best he can do. But maybe having this little whippersnapper biting at his heels, he might just say, okay, well, we'll move the goalpost again, and let's see if you can keep up. We know competition breeds the best out of Brad. So certainly he's not going to worry him. But also maybe Acosta coming off that zero base of MotoGP experience, he might bring 1 or 2 little things that benefit the whole team. And let's see how that goes. But I'm very excited to see him on the bike, and I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. As we've said, I hope it's not going to be the case that in 3 or 4 years' time, the KTM has got so good because of all the work Brad's done, and now this then 23-year-old benefits from all of it as opposed to Brad. But that's racing, you know. Time waits for no man, and that's just how it works.
It is, Paul. I think you've summed it up perfectly there, and a lot of people in the comments, you know, kind of echoing that same thing, and a lot of people mentioning Anthony Friedenstein, mentioning David Alonso. You know, we've spoken about it before. KTM have got this abundance of talent that's coming through the field. You know, so they're in a very good position. First time Pedro climbed off the gas, he said, wow, yeah, deep sea diver Smith. I saw that, and even his crew chief, that New Zealand or Australian guy, was also like really impressed. Anyway, it was a good day. Yes, and no, it was testing, but it was a nice glimpse of what's coming and the excitement that's coming for 2024. You know, it just made you rub your hands together. even with a cock signal that I had in my daughter's hospital room. Yes, I was in and out of signal, and I wanted to throw that phone out the window at one stage. But there's just so much excitement surrounding MotoGP heading into 2024, which is fantastic, because we could have been sitting here going, right, Mark's still on the Honda. Are they going to improve? Aren't they going to improve? Oh, we don't know. Frankie's still on a Yamaha. Are they going to improve on the? Oh, I don't know. Pedro stayed another year in Moto 2 because KTM says not ready, and Paul's on the bike. You know what I mean? It could have been a completely different picture being painted. And at the moment, I think, and I was one that thought 2024 was going to be useless because all the contracts were signed. 2025, we always knew was going to be exciting. But 2024 has turned into this monster that I cannot wait to attack and see. So, yeah, very exciting times. Paul, I won't lie, I went into the kitchen, helped my boy get his yogurt. I took the top off, and you know how you lick the top of a yogurt. So anyway, that's got me really craving a yogurt now. Thanks for that, Paul. So we're going to end the conversation there. A big thank you to everyone for tuning in. This won't be the last Talking MotoGP for the year. I'm going to talk to the likes of Simon Crafar. I'd love to get his views. We can talk about the tire pressure rule, and there's a lot we could talk about with Simon Crafar. We'll try and have a quick chat with Darren Binder, see how his testing went. Give us a little bit of insight in how the season went for him and what he hopes to change for 2024. Try and somehow, and I must maybe speak to Courtney rather than Brad, because when you're married, the easiest way to the man is through the wife, So from now on, I think I'm just going to have Courtney on speed dial. Hey, Courts, can Uncle Brad come out and play? You know what I mean? So yeah. Anyway, we'll try and grab a word from Brad. Hopefully at some time before the end of the year, if not early into next year. He's going to go enjoy one of the best days of his life with his marriage, marrying a beautiful person in Courtney. Can't wait for that to happen, and then their honeymoon period. So anyway, we'll try and get as many guests as we possibly can. I really want to get Michael Laverty on the show as well, and a bunch of others. So stay tuned to the Motor Rider World Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Paul, from my side,
before you go, please can we try to get Jake Dixon on? A couple of people want to have a chat to him, I believe. Guys from Krugersdorp area.
We can. I'll have to get a beep. I'll have to get a beeper. Ready. Beep, beep, beep,
beep,
beep, beep, beep, beep, beep, beep.
And just one thing I want to mention, I read on social media, which everyone has done, this tire pressure rule. And I know we could probably have a show on its own. When you speak to Simon, you can chat to him about it. But I mean, there's not one person on social media who said, yes, this is a great thing. Remember, we said it last time. This championship could have been decided by a rule, not by the track, which had happened to Digi and Antonio. And it's disappointing for Brad because he didn't get to go on the podium. It's disappointing for Fabio because he thought he was second. To me, it's a load of BS. And I hope that maybe we should sign a petition, all us Saffers, and say, we're done with you, Oaks. Get rid of that rule, because the rider has no idea of what the temperature's gone up to. I just think it's going to cause more hassle than, because next year there's no grace period. You're going to get clapped with penalties immediately. And that's my bugbear at the moment with MotoGP. They introduced a rule that you can enforce a rule where the guy can see it. But if he's not getting the info, I know they can feel when the tire's too hot or it's losing temperature, but to 0.2 of a degree for 33% of a race, come on, guys. Yeah, that's to me, it's just a stupid rule. And the more they make these dumb rules, the more they're going to lose spectators and enthusiasts to the sport, because it's going to, my guy won, and 4 hours later, oh no, sorry, he didn't. He got a 3-second penalty. That's my bugbear for the moment.
Yeah, it's horrible. And, unfortunately, I think Dorna knows South Africa exists because they have to put this flag up the wrong way on the podium a lot of the time. But other than that, Brad lives in Andorra, which they know. So that's the only reason they know. So our little petition, I don't think will go very far. But I agree with you. It needs to change. And this is a conversation, again, that we can have with Simon Crafar, because I think I'd love to hear his thoughts, because there is MotoGP and Dorna have let the monster out the cage, the beast out the cage. And it needs to be managed and controlled now. And they don't quite have the answer to do that. So, we're going to have to wait and see how that all plays out. But at the moment, that's the bad taste you left in the mouth. They've got us hooked in with the Marquez to Cressini and Brad at KTM and this and this and this. But at the same time, you're still trying to get loose because not 100% happy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you so much for
Excellent.
joining me once again. And the last couple, I think it's been fantastic. I look forward to heading into 2024 with you alongside me, along with everyone that's always in the comments, and the Stephen Berries and the Svens and the little media co's now, and the deep sea diver Smiths and the Gary Fosses and the Daryl Holmes and the everyone's, and to everyone who tuned in again, just thank you so much, and just stay tuned. And I'll try and keep you as entertained as much as possible over this quiet period. Paul, thanks again, and keep well, my man.
Thanks. You too, Rob. It's been absolutely fantastic. And I don't know what we're going to do for the next, 10.5 weeks. We're going to have to just tell our wives we're watching races on Sunday afternoon, and just rerun the whole season, so we can at least enjoy MotoGP. It's going to be fantastic.
I've got no garden, so I don't even have that excuse. I can't be told to go do the garden or anything. So I don't know. I think mine is condensation on the windows and getting rid of all the cock that you have to deal with there in this place. But yeah, I think it's going to be exciting, and I cannot wait. So thanks again, Paul, and thanks to everyone, and hope to chat to you all soon.
Yeah, awesome. Pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening, and we'll chat when we get racing underway again. Cheers.